What's up, everybody? We are back with another episode of the Kings of Tennessee podcast. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Billy Derrick. Billy, it's October. It's gotten here very quickly. The leaves are starting to change, and we're getting to the nitty-gritty of football, baby.
We are, man. Best time of the year. You mentioned the leaves starting to change. Weather's starting to kind of cool off a little bit. You still got a little bit of summer, but man, this is when games really start to matter. A lot of teams with with not a lot of margin for error, right? That they start playing some really meaningful games, and I think that's what makes this time in the college football season so fun to keep track of. And I can't wait. We got another big weekend this weekend and conference play too, right? And everything becomes a little bit more important. So this is no doubt. I mean, right here in the middle of the season is interesting because you really start to see, momentum shifts and teams start to really establish their identity and things like that. So yeah, man, I'm fired up for another big weekend.
We have arguably one of the best rivalry games this weekend, which we'll get to in Pick'em. But Red River rivalry is this weekend with two Big 12 teams that are having a great season so far, and I think we could see them, back again in the Big 12 title game, which we will get to later on in Pick'em. But Billy, let's jump right into this. We have kind of a full slate. We're gonna start off with our favorite helmet stickers. I'm gonna let you go first. I know you said you have two. So hit me with both your helmet stickers from week 4 of college football.
I'm going real simple, man. And I could go Notre Dame, but I'm gonna go with Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman, I thought, won that game for Notre Dame. I mean, anyone with a brain that was watching that game can see that. He had a 17-yard scramble on 4th and 16. And, then right after that, Audric Estime punches it in from about 30 yards out. So you could give it to Hartman and Estime here, but I'll give it to Sam Hartman. But without that 4th and 16 scramble, the game's over. Notre Dame's playoff chances are dead, and everybody's down on the Irish. It wasn't pretty, but Notre Dame got it done, and you know, I, I think that's sort of the team they are. They're never going to be the sexy team. They're never going to be the team that um, you know everybody wants to tune in and watch. Although I think a lot of people have been watching the last couple of weeks, but it's not like it's Colorado or USC. Like there's no real like pull really. I mean, oh, let's watch this high powered Notre Dame offense. No, I mean they were kind of stuck at 14 or 13 points, I guess, for a while against Duke, and credit to Duke. But yeah, I'm going to give it to Sam Hartman. Yeah, he was 15 of 30 for 222 yards, and man, they bounced back. They needed it, and I think that proved that they are still a playoff type team, and they've got what it takes because you've got a quarterback in Sam Hartman. He's a guy. That's why you got him, right? He's a guy that can win you a game like that. That's exactly what he did, and that's exactly why Notre Dame, wanted him, had their eyes on him. I think that's why he came to Notre Dame for games like that, and they ended up getting it done. So I'm going to give my first sticker to Sam Hartman for Notre Dame and their comeback because it wasn't looking good. It was not looking good for the Irish there for most of that game. But they found the way on the shoulders of Sam Hartman. For my second one, I'm going to go with a team, and I'm going to go with Ole Miss. We were talking before about the Rebels. Electric atmosphere, great game against LSU. They end up winning, of course. What was it, Chase? 55-49, I think it was.
55-49,
Or
yes.
55-49, yeah. And I thought Jackson Dart was phenomenal. Almost 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, and I give Ole Miss a helmet sticker because I give a ton of credit to Lane Kiffin. He's obviously still calling their plays, and they very well could have easily, just sort of taken it easy there at the end and maybe try to run the ball, get in position maybe for a kick or not not really put their foot on the gas and step on LSU's throat while they could, but they did. And Trey Harris gave them the lead there at the end, and that's aggressive play call. Give it to one of your best playmakers on a screen. Give him an opportunity to get in space and get into the end zone, and that's what they did. So they really stepped on LSU's throat. I thought late in that game, and I not this helmet sticker is not for their defense. Neither team's defense played well at all. But just big helmet sticker to Lane Kiffin, signature win. It was a game that I think we expected LSU to win. We both picked LSU, I think, last week in our picks, but credit to Ole Miss. They found a way. They found a way at the end, and I think if there's a little bit more time left on the clock, you know, LSU might have found a way to get that win, but uh, Ole Miss found a way. So I'm going Notre Dame and then Ole Miss for my helmet stickers.
I sadly didn't get to catch a lot of the Notre Dame game. Tennessee was on around that time, and then also trying to flip back and forth with the Ole Miss game. I know Riley Leonard got banged up pretty late, or I was at the third quarter.
It was the last play of the game. He Notre Dame sacked him. They recovered the fumble and he went down. I think he's actually going to be okay. He should be. I don't know if he'll be back this week, but he'll be back. And I think the news was better than they expected. But yeah, it's kind of awful to see that. But yeah, it was last play of the game on that sack from Notre Dame.
I think it's they listed as a high ankle sprain, so I think he'll miss a couple weeks. But that's very good news for Duke football because Riley Leonard has been great this year, and he was very good against
Yeah.
Clemson and very good against Notre Dame. Two. I've got two helmet stickers. I kind of changed up since the last time we were talking about this before the show started. I've got two, and I've got a quick honorary. So my two helmet stickers both play the same position and are in the same conference. I'm going to start with Quinshad Judkins, Ole Miss running back. 33 carries, 177 yards on the ground, one touchdown. From a true sophomore, he looked great, and he has arguably been top two, probably top three easily running back in the SEC since entering this great conference last year. He had a great true freshman season, and I know there was a lot of hype coming up this year. They kept him at Ole Miss, and he looked great against LSU. He's kind of had a slow start to this season, but that shootout of a game allowed not only him, but it allowed Jackson Dart to kind of get into a high octane game and kind of get their stats up and get their momentum up for the rest of the season, especially after that offense got absolutely silenced by Alabama the week beforehand. But yeah, Quinshon Judkins looked great against LSU, and if he keeps this up, he will finish probably top two, if not number one in the SEC in terms of yards and touchdowns, possibly. My second helmet sticker is a former Vanderbilt Commodore transfer, Ray Davis. I mean, what a show Ray Davis put on for the Kentucky Wildcats against Florida. 26 carries, 280 yards, and three
Mm.
touchdowns. He had over 200 yards. He had 206 at half with a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown. If anybody out there plays college fantasy and you had Ray Davis, you had yourself a weekend to to never forget. The 71-yard
Hmm.
rushing touchdown that kind of really put Florida on ice early. Kentucky looked fantastic. They can't throw the ball still, and that's going to be a problem moving forward. But Ray Davis put the team on his back, and he was a monster. I mean, some of the cuts, the way he runs it was beautiful. And he's a power back. He can run you over. He can, I mean, absolutely juke you out of your jockstrap. Good luck keeping up with him when he's in open field. Florida got bullied this past weekend against Kentucky. So Ray Davis is number two. My honorary, real quick, the Clemson Tigers really looked great in their bounce back win on the road against Syracuse. That D line looked phenomenal. Klubnik
Yeah.
looked good, and it was just overall a very dominant win for Clemson to get back on track after two I mean, two good losses. Duke's a really good team. Florida State's a really good team. So good to see Clemson and Dabo Swinney back on that track. Billy, anything else from the previous week that you saw or noted that stood out to you?
Let's see here. Trying to think. I think I think I was impressed with obviously Brock Bowers, but Georgia's ability to just kind of find a way there late in the game. Obviously, Georgia's not as good as they were last year, but I thought Carson Beck showed some mettle, some toughness, some confidence, some swagger late in that game to get it done. I mean, it's yeah, you've got Brock Bowers, but I mean, you got to deliver it to him somehow. And I was impressed with Georgia's ability um, to stay in that game. I mean, it was on the road. It's a rivalry game. We talked about that one I think last week, and you knew Auburn was going to come ready to play, and their fans were going to be ready to roll, and they were, and credit to them. But I thought Georgia really showed that they're not going anywhere. They're still top five team. I don't know that they're the number one team. I don't think they're the number one team. We're going to get to our rankings here, but yeah, I was just impressed. I hadn't seen anything like that yet from Carson Beck, and I know it wasn't some sort of miraculous comeback, but I mean they had to score late in the game and they did, and they got the ball to their playmaker, the best player in the country, I think, Brock Bowers, and they ended up winning the game. So yeah, I'll give it to Carson Beck in Georgia, and just their ability to find a way late in that game. I was really impressed with that group. I mean, we saw them do it all year last year, but new cast of characters, and they've come in here and proven they've got what it takes. So yeah, impressed. I know it was Auburn, but I mean that Auburn team, they're tough to play at home. Hugh Freeze has already got them rolling. So yeah, I'll go with Carson Beck in Georgia.
I know you mentioned the rankings. We both put out our rankings on Twitter. Follow us at the Kings of Tennessee podcast on Twitter. Anything, Billy, that you want to kind of address about your top 10? We both have the same number one. We both have Texas at number one. Georgia has kind of looked soft. Texas has kind of beaten two really good ranked teams, and kind of the last one was a dominant fashion. So anything on your top 10 that you want to point out or address or anything?
Um, yeah, I mean, outside of Texas and Georgia, for me, I think a notable move. I pushed USC back a little bit, and I had Oregon jump over them, um, just because they've got a common opponent. Oregon dominated Colorado. USC was not able to dominate Colorado. I mean, they let Colorado get back in that game. Um, and I've also got Notre Dame. I had Notre Dame jump above USC after they ended up beating Duke. So USC, I mean, yeah, we know about their offense, but I was not impressed with them late in that game against Colorado. They let them get back into it. Um, and yeah, I mean, listen, this is fluid. Obviously, it's going up and down every week, but yeah, USC was obviously noteworthy there. Michigan is a team that they finally dominated somebody from start to finish. They were just kind of there in the rankings, but now I think they solidified themselves as a dominant team. And then yeah, obviously we don't do outside the top 10. I think Alabama's hovering there. I think they'll probably squeeze in potentially if they beat A&M, North Carolina, Washington State, Oklahoma. I think those teams are kind of floating right outside the top 10. But yeah, I kind of pushed USC back a little bit because they had to survive, man. Credit Colorado, but I don't think that USC defense is very good. I mean, and we've we've talked about that. Just how shaky they've been. So that's really the biggest thing for me. And I guess I did push Georgia back a couple of spots because of their close call against Auburn. But yeah, Texas is a team. I think right now they look like the best. But yeah, the biggest movement for me was USC kind of pushing them back out to number 10, close to out of it. Obviously, we know how good their offense is, Chase, but I don't think their defense is good enough. So USC is kind of the noteworthy team that I decided to push back.
USC is only with that defense. They're about to be tested because as we get further on into this month, they'll have Washington on the schedule, and I know they have Oregon as well. Oregon, to me, I have them at 7 right now, but that's a team that could honestly push into the top 5 because they're kind of they the few takeaways out of the Pac-12 in the last couple weeks. Yes, Washington has been dominant, but aside from the scare this past weekend, but Oregon just all around looks like a very complete team. Bo Nix is having a really good year. That defense, Dan Lanning is doing what he was doing at Georgia, and it's finally starting to show at the University of Oregon. And I think he's a great coach. He's a great defensive coach. That team is very scary. They've got Washington in a couple weeks, and they'll have USC on down the road as well. USC also Notre Dame on the schedule. So I mean, they could be an undefeated team, or they could be a legitimate two-loss team. I mean, it's very there's not much room for them either way. I think it's either undefeated at the end of the season or a three-loss team. Um, but yeah, that defense has a lot to fix. I also have Michigan at 2. I think Michigan looked great this past weekend. Um, they're just a really physical team. I like the way they play football. Not really in the passing game, but they will run it down your throat, and they've shown that they're not gonna put 50, they're not gonna put 60 points up, but they're gonna squeeze out a 35-0 win here and there. I will say my biggest faller, Penn State. I watched a little bit of the Penn State Northwestern game, and that offense, it took a very long time to get going. And Drew Aller didn't look great against Northwestern. Northwestern is not a very good team, and they hung in there for uh, basically over half of that football game. So Penn State down to 9 for me, and that's really about it with my top 10. Nothing really has changed dramatically. Washington is a team that I will keep my eye on in terms of top 3 because I think Georgia. We'll get to that in just a second. Or pick them. Georgia's got a test this weekend, so we will
Hmm.
see what Georgia is truly made out of. Speaking of getting into it, Billy, it's time for our favorite part of the show, pick 'em. I'm gonna start by showing our records because a lot has changed. A lot has changed. Billy Derrick is back at 500. 42, 42. Let's give a round of applause. 42, 42 and 1. We both lost our locks of the week. That's 2 in a row for us in the lock of the week categories.
We
That's
suck.
something.
Our locks have been awful.
They've been bad. They've been bad.
What were ours last week?
You had LSU minus 2.5. I had Tennessee, South Carolina over 63.5. Missed mine by 2 points. That's my betting. That's just how it's going for me this year. But yeah, LSU
Man,
minus 2.5 and Tennessee over. Both of those failed to hit. But Billy now is 42, 42 and 1 after a very good week, and I am 39, 38 and 1. My stock is going off a cliff right now. So I promise from here on I will do better. Insert Tim Tebow press conference from Florida. You'll never see a person pick as hard as I will pick, and you will never see anybody dedicate their time to pick them as hard as I will. Uh, but Billy is on the rise, and I am on the decline. So we have a good slate this week. We have a fantastic slate this week, and let's start it off with one of the best rivals. Uh, in this great game of college football. It's the Texas State Fair. And with the Texas State Fair and the Cotton Bowl, not Jerry's Cotton Bowl, but the true original Cotton Bowl, Oklahoma against Texas. Texas 6.5 point favorite and a neutral site with the over set at 60.5. Billy, I'm gonna let you take the Red River shootout, as I like to call it, for this weekend. Just give me your theory here.
all right. I've tried the last couple of weeks. I've tried to go kind of against the grain, right? I've tried to go sort of away from my first instinct, and I know, yeah, that might be stupid. Usually, your first instinct usually wins, but not in betting. Betting seems to be the opposite. Exactly what you think might happen usually doesn't happen. So I've kind of tried to go against the grain for a lot of these picks. It's an early kick, right? 11 a.m. neutral site, right? Dallas. It's going to be electric. I think game day's there. So a lot of hype. Um, Texas has been in some big games, right? I mean, Alabama was a big game that was on the road, and they passed that test with flying colors. 6.5 is the line. My gut tells me lay it with Texas. Hook 'em horns. They're better. They're going to win. Uh, I think they are better. I think they're going to win. But let me turn that off. Turn that off real quick. Um, Sorry about that. So as I was saying, Chase, obviously Texas is better. I think they win, but I like Oklahoma a lot. I think Dylan Gabriel is a stud. He's got 1,500 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Um, they've got a couple of really good receivers around him. Again, I don't think they win, but give me Oklahoma plus 6.5. And listen, man, it's the Red River Shootout. You got to take the over. I mean, you don't have a brain if you don't take the over in this matchup. So, but give me the Sooners. 6.5, a little too much for me. I think it's probably closer to a field goal game. But again, I'm not super confident in that. I don't love that pick really at all. But give me Oklahoma plus 6.5 and over 60.5. I think it's a hell of a game. I think it's a lot closer than last year. Last year was, I mean, blowout. It's embarrassing for Oklahoma, and I think they take that to heart. They looked better. Brent Venables coaching up that defense. Um, Offensively, obviously with Gabriel, they're really ticking. I mean, they have put up some crazy numbers this season. So give me the Sooners plus 6.5 and over 60.5.
We have our first head-to-head matchup already off a rip.
There
Um,
we go.
I like Texas here a lot. I like Quinn Ewers. I think Quinn's had a very good season. Oklahoma's been great defensively, but Oklahoma really hasn't played a true tough test yet. Like you could look at Texas. Texas has been tested so far. They played Alabama. Kansas really not last week because Jalen Daniels decided at the last second he just wasn't playing.
Yeah,
So
what was up with that?
he had back issues, and as a person who had Kansas plus 16 and a half, that that was tough. I don't know what happened there. I know a lot of people
Yeah,
on
I
Twitter.
had the over. I was
Mhm.
I was not happy because with Daniels out, Kansas isn't gonna score.
And it was the most last second thing ever because I turned the game on and he's not out there.
It was
And
weird.
yeah, it was well, it was bogus. It was whatever. So Texas really not tested this past weekend, but they've got the one test so far against Alabama. You could argue Oklahoma's best opponent they played at Cincinnati, and they're not great. Emory Jones has not been that great, but they've looked good. They've beaten the teams. They've blown them out. So you can argue that. But Texas is tested, and I think they're just a little bit ahead of what Oklahoma is right now. Oklahoma is a great team. Do not get me wrong, but Texas, they're kind of rising. We both have them as our number one team, and I think they truly cement that this weekend. Give me Texas minus 6.5, and like you said, it's the shootout. It's the Red River Shootout over 6.5. It's going to be a fun game. It's going to be great. But I think a touchdown, or a little bit more of a win. I'm not saying blowout, but I like Texas by a touchdown in this game. Um, Switching over to our conference, the SEC, a fun game between a team that we both got to watch this past weekend, two teams that we both got to watch this past weekend. LSU trying to bounce back from a rough game against Ole Miss, going on the road to a surprisingly undefeated Missouri Tiger team. Missouri at home, 6.5 point dog with the over under set at 65. Billy, I'm gonna go ahead and just give you my prediction here. Give me Missouri plus 6.5. I know it's a little wild. I know a lot of people might think, well, LSU is LSU, and on paper, LSU is way better than Missouri, but on paper, LSU looks like the best team in the West. But they've played like paper mache. Their defense has played like paper, wet paper, I should say, because they can't stop anything. They couldn't stop a flu in the middle of whatever you want to say. But uh, Missouri at home, undefeated, playing good football so far. So give me Missouri plus 6.5. I'm gonna go over because I think while LSU's defense is not very good, their offense is pretty solid. Jaden Daniels has had a pretty good year so far, pretty good month of football. So give me the Tigers Missouri Tigers, go Tigers, plus 6.5 on over 65.
Yeah, man, I'm fired up for this game. I can't wait to see LSU go into Como, and that will be a good atmosphere. We're not used to, um, many electric atmospheres in Como, but I mean, I think you saw one at K State earlier this season. I think it's going to be a track meet. I'm hammering the over in this one. I think it's going to be entertaining. Neither defense is really that good. I think Missouri's defense is a little bit better. They've got a really good run defense, and they showed that last week against Vandy. They've showed it all season. I think LSU finds a way to win, just because they're so desperate. I mean, they need it. Mizzou's 5-0. I don't think they get to 6-0. Jaden Daniels is an absolute monster. I mean, his ability to make things happen through the air, but also on the ground. I think that leads LSU in this one. But Missouri's going to cover though. I like Missouri to cover. I think they're. I saw where they're 3-1 against the spread this year, and they're still being undervalued here. I think it's kind of an unfair line. I think this game, like the last one, I think it's probably decided by a field goal. Speaking of field goals, Jacksonville State just kicked a field goal to take the lead over MTSU. MTSU just choking this one away. Sorry to get distracted there, but yeah, give me Mizzou, Mizzou Chase over, not over, but to cover 6.5 there, and then over. Like I said, I think it's gonna be a track meet. I don't even remember what the over is, but I'm taking the over.
I'm excited for this track meet. I think it is. I think, like you said, it's gonna be a great atmosphere. Not used to good atmospheres at the University of Missouri lately. They've been there. They've been there before. But this is it. I think the student section will show up. I like Brady Cook, like the way he's been playing. Played a little banged up lately, but I still think he's had a pretty solid stretch so far. But we talk about track meets in this game. Let's switch to a game that's going to be not a track meet because it's two of the. I wouldn't say Iowa's one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. They're one of the worst offenses in the Big Ten, and Purdue's defense is that team. Purdue all around is boring. I saw them play Wisconsin, and I was asleep by the second half. So Purdue on the road against Iowa. Iowa searching for that 24-point average. So far they're at a decent pace. Uh, Iowa at home is a 2.5-point favorite and the over under set at a whopping, and I mean a whopping 39 points. Billy, um, help me find the gem here in this sleeper, possibly.
Yeah, God, what an ugly, ugly game this is probably going to be. I mean, Kinnick Stadium. I'd like to know how many points have been scored in Kinnick, or average points have been scored from Iowa at Kinnick Stadium. It feels like they've almost been worse at home. Um, Yet, Iowa just lost Cade McNamara for the season, and he's a player, man. I've liked him ever since he was at Michigan. I thought he kind of got screwed a little bit. I mean, JJ McCarthy's a better player, but he's a heck of a player, man. But he's not with Iowa anymore. I like Hudson Card from Purdue. I mean, he was at Texas last year and slung the ball around, and I mean, let's remember he almost beat Alabama last year. I mean, he played after Ewers got hurt last year. I think in a lot of these games, Chase, the better quarterback wins the game. And I mean, I don't even know who Iowa's backup is. I'm going to ride with Hudson Card and Purdue. Um, I'll take them to win outright, but I'll definitely take them to cover +2 here. And I'm going under 38.5. I just don't. I don't think either team is going to score enough to get there. That it might be close to that. But at 38, I mean, I could see kind of a 17-14 type game, maybe 20-14, just something like that. But I don't see that this quite getting to 38.5, 39, wherever it's at. But I like Purdue in this matchup. I think Iowa will probably be a little bit shocked. It might be a shock to the system with Cade McNamara out. A lot of times, first game with these injured quarterbacks out, it's just tough for these teams. So yeah, give me Purdue. Give me the Boilermakers here to cover the +2, but I'll also take them to win outright there.
We have another head-to-head matchup between the two of us. I'm gonna take Iowa minus 2.5. Cade McNamara is a great quarterback, don't or a good quarterback. Do not get me wrong, but that offense, even with McNamara, has not been great. So you add in Deacon Hill, who's taking it over for McNamara, a transfer coming in from Wisconsin. He's a junior. How much worse can you get in terms of this offense? Probably not really that much worse. Uh, and I don't know. I like Iowa. They've been on pace for the 24 points per game. They are looking decent. And I think honestly, this is a game with Purdue's defense. I think Iowa has in terms of Iowa offense, a monster game. Uh, so give me Iowa minus 2. I think Iowa puts up 30, 35. They got some points from the defense and special teams this last game. I think the defensive special teams either gave them 14 or 21 this past weekend against Michigan State. But I think Iowa, this is if there was ever a chance for Brian Ferentz to say, "Hey, we're good, don't worry," this could be the game for them. Purdue, their defense is not very good. Wisconsin kind of showed you that. Even though last week Illinois only put up 14, I still think Purdue's defense is not that great. So give me Iowa minus 2 and give me the over. I love 39 is really low, but I'm really confident in Iowa's offense this weekend. Weird saying that against Purdue's defense, but I love it. I think they're going to come out with Deacon Hill. Yes, it's a new quarterback. But maybe this offense flows a little bit better with a new quarterback. It's just a change of scenery mid-season. It's weird, but it could also work. So give me Iowa minus 2 and give me the over of 39. Let's talk about a better game than that game. Uh, Honestly, it could be game of the week. If Red River doesn't really hold up. Alabama on the road against Texas A&M. A&M right now is sitting as a 2.5 point dog. I could see that getting to maybe two, maybe 1.5 by Saturday. Over under set at 47. Billy, I'm gonna go ahead and Alabama, they had a game earlier this year against another state of Texas opponent, and Hook'em Horns beat them. And I think again, Alabama, I think we're going to change the name from Alabama to Texas Part 2 because I'm taking A&M plus 2.5. I think Max Johnson looked great last weekend against Arkansas. The defense gives up points. This team gives up points like crazy, but they score points like crazy. I think this is the team that's gotten better and better and better as the weeks have progressed. Even with the loss to Miami, I think they're still fine. Miami's a pretty solid team. So I think Texas A&M, proves that the state of Texas officially owns and leases the state of Alabama this weekend. Give me the Aggies plus 2.5. And A&M's been an over machine so far this year. They Miami hung 50 on them. Arkansas was in the 30s this past weekend, while A&M was in the 40s. So give me over 47. I think over is the immaculate play this weekend. I know Alabama's defense is really good, but Jalen Milroe, I don't know. He's the weirdest quarterback that I can't get my read on him because he moves really well, and his deep ball is really nice. But anything else, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I get to see him live in a couple weeks, so maybe I'll have a better read. But I like A&M this weekend at home at Kyle Allen. I think the last time A&M beat Alabama a couple years ago was at home. So they've got a great track record recently against them. So Jimbo really cools his hot seat off this weekend against Alabama. Billy, where's your head for Alabama and A&M?
I mean, nowhere. I mean, I don't really have a feel. This line is awful. It's just gross to look at. Because 2.5 line. Vegas is basically telling people to stay away, pretty much. I mean, I would never bet on this game. I mean, it's just an impossible line. There's too many variables to it. Alabama's defensive front has been dominant over the last 3 games. I think now they've played Ole Miss, Mississippi State, um, and then who did they play before? I forget who they played before that. But the last few games, I think Alabama has just been really dominant, especially up front on defense. And I know Max Johnson has been solid after taking over for Connor Wegman, but I think the A&M offense is going to regress back to maybe what they truly are this weekend. Um, I just now I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be easy for Alabama. I mean, it's a tough road atmosphere. I think one of the toughest places to play in the country. But I will reluctantly take Alabama to win and cover. So I'm going. We got a lot of head to heads here. I'm going opposite of you. Alabama minus 2.5. And what is the over under in that one, Chase?
I had it at 47. Now that might have shifted. Uh, but this morning it was at 47.
Okay, 47. And that's kind of a tough over under. You know what? Screw it. I'll go under. I feel like a lot of unders have hit this year. And especially in a lot of these big games. I think defense is kind of underrated, at least at this point in the season. So I'll go Alabama minus 2.5 and under in this one.
It's going to be a very good game. Like that line is very atrocious, and I have responsibly stepped away from the sports gambling sports book for the season until the college football playoffs come around. So I will not have any action on this game. But for Pick'em, it's going to be a great game. Like you said, a lot of head-to-heads so far this weekend. But I think we are coming to a game that we may agree on or may not agree on. This is going to be interesting. This is the game when I wrote this down on our pick'em slate. Uh, I had a lot of thoughts on it. And Billy, I want to see where your head is with Kentucky going on the road against Georgia. Georgia, coming off of a tight win against Auburn, Kentucky smoking Florida at home this past weekend. Georgia at home right now, 14.5 point favorite with the over under set at 49. Billy, what's your pick for Kentucky at Georgia?
Chase, we talk about trends all the time. This team is 0-4 against the spread or 4-0, whatever. Well, this game favors Kentucky in a big, big way. At least so far this season. All the numbers point to Kentucky. The Cats are 4-0 against the spread in FBS games this season, and Georgia is 0-3 against the spread. So Georgia, I don't think they've covered a game all season. I think those trends continue this week. I mean, just look at what you've seen. Ray Davis, as you mentioned earlier, he's an absolute monster at running back, and Georgia's front seven has been leaky, average. I mean, at best this season. I think Auburn showed last week with that zone read. I know Kentucky is a different style of run game, but man, I mean that Auburn was able to find some success, especially in the run game last week. So I think if Auburn can get a push, which they did last week, I think Kentucky might reset the line of scrimmage, and be able to push Georgia around a little bit. I think Georgia wins, and but I think this game screams, tough, physical, rock fight type game. And I think it has some backdoor cover potential for Georgia. 14.5, I think, is what it's at right now. And that's two touchdowns and a hook right there for a Kentucky team that's a top 20 team in the country. They're coming off a dominant win over Florida. Can they keep it rolling? I think they can. Now, again, I don't think they win, but give me Kentucky to cover 14.5 and give me the under in this one. I don't think there'll be a ton of points scored, and I like the under. So give me the Cats and the under.
Uh, Despite all of our head-to-head matchups so far this weekend, we have finally come to a complete agreement because I too will take 14.5 for Kentucky and the under of 54. Georgia's been weird. I don't know if Georgia is just not really taking things seriously, if they're getting too complacent, or if this is just who they are at this point in their dynasty run. But that defense has a hard time stopping the run, like you mentioned, against Auburn. And Ray Davis coming off of a fantastic weekend against Florida. Yeah, Florida is not the greatest measuring stick, but if he can even get close to replicating that, it's going to be a very good week for the Kentucky Wildcats. What scares me, though, is if Georgia figures out in their game plan to shut down Ray Davis, Devin Leary, putting the game in Devin Leary's hands is very, very scary to me this year. Leary only threw for 69 yards this past weekend, and he's not been great. So that's where my fear in this game lies. But until then, until I see Georgia really shut down Ray Davis, and we're stuck watching Devin Leary try to beat Georgia by himself, I think Kentucky still does it. 14.5 is big. I honestly want to be wild and say Kentucky could win outright, just because I think Georgia's had a very on the rope season so far. I don't think we're there yet to a Georgia loss, so I won't get that crazy with it. But I think Kentucky 14.5 is very reasonable, and I like the under. I don't, Georgia and Auburn were at 27-20. I could see that similar of a score for this weekend. Um, Maybe Georgia gets into the 30s, but I don't think Kentucky does. So yeah, I like Kentucky plus 14.5, and I like the under 54. That game it's going to be a fun game to watch. I think that's a slept on game this weekend. Speaking of slept on games this weekend, Notre Dame travels to Louisville. Louisville's had a pretty good season so far. Louisville at home is a 6.5 point underdog with the over under set at 54. I'm gonna go ahead and say I like Notre Dame minus 6.5 here. Louisville's good. They've been pretty decent so far, but I think Hartman and that Notre Dame offense, they're clicking, they're firing on all cylinders. They're not going to score a whole lot, but they don't really need to. They've kind of had a low scoring affair these last two weekends, and so I'm going to also take the under of 54. But I like Notre Dame here. I think Hartman on the road. Louisville's been a bad on the road team. They've been a pretty solid at home team, but I think Notre Dame, they've been good so far. Aside from Marcus Freeman, for some reason, not putting an 11th man on the field against Ohio State and them winning that game, Notre Dame is looking at a pretty solid undefeated season so far, heading into the later months of this season. So yeah, I like Notre Dame minus 6.5 and under 54.
Yeah, I agree. I've got the same thing there. I think Notre Dame sort of gets back on track. I mean, I know they're coming off a win, but I don't think they've really played like the last couple of games. I think they've left some better play out there on the field, and I think I'm waiting for this Notre Dame team to sort of lock in and really air the ball out, put up some points because they're going to have to against some of these teams on their schedule. USC, Clemson potentially down the stretch. I think they'll have to score. So. Um, I don't think they can stay in these rock fights for too long. So, and I think they will. I think Notre Dame puts up some points. I still like the under, and I like Notre Dame to cover. I'll be kind of eking that one out. I feel like I think it'll be a tight game. I think it'll be competitive. I think it'll be a good atmosphere, and um, you know, Louisville's a team that is well coached. Jeff Brom is a great coach. He played there. They're coming off a rock fight of their own last week against NC State and that win. So, yeah, low scoring, another low scoring type of rock fight, kind of game. But give me the Irish here, minus 6.5 and under 54. That's a lot of points for this game. I don't know why the over under is that high. Um, but yeah, give me the under and the Irish to sort of get back to form and get back to the team that I think we all, at least offensively, the offense that we all I think expected to see under Sam Hartman.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame's been pretty solid in the rock fight game so far. Again, Marcus Freeman, man, one more player where you really needed him to be, and Notre Dame is looking at a very different season so far. They still have a chance to get back on track, but man, beating Ohio State would have been just such a nail that they needed
Mm-hmm.
in the flyer of this season. Here is a game, Billy. This is our last game of our pick'em slate. My team is not playing this weekend, so uh, I will be rooting for the other half of the KOT brand this weekend. Vanderbilt going on the road against Florida. Vanderbilt right now is it's dropped to 18.5, I think. Spread wise, I had it at 19, but I think it's down to 18.5 since I looked at it. And the over under is set at 52. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you my picks because I want to hear what you have to say for your boys going on the road. I've picked Vanderbilt I think every week, and they are have not covered a spread yet. But Billy, this is it. This is the week. I feel it. I'm confident. I listened to a couple of Clark Lee's press conferences from this week. I know they had a not a great showing against Missouri, and I went back and watched that UNLV game, and I was frustrated for you and for that Vanderbilt fan base. But I think this is a weekend. I'm going to keep going because Vanderbilt is going to cover up one spread this season. I know it. In Florida, those scumbags beat us. You got lucky. Our offensive line wasn't healthy. You got lucky. You got lucky, whatever. But Vanderbilt avenging the KOT, the other half of the KOT brand. Vanderbilt plus 19, under 52. I don't think this game is going to be high scoring at all, but Vanderbilt's not getting blown out. So that's my play for this week. Vandy plus 19, under 52. Billy, I'm so excited for your preview for this. Let give me the rundown for this game.
Yeah, that's how betting sort of goes, Chase. The one time you go against, the grain of what you've done every week, it would go the other way. So, but yeah, the Gators, they are way too inconsistent to lay 18 and a half points, even at home against anybody. I mean, you know, but with that said, Graham Mertz, I think, has done a good job protecting the ball. And Billy Napier seems to sort of understand that he needs to make changes to how this program operates after last week's just disaster against Kentucky. I mean, they've got to just a lot of penalties, a lot of stupid, just like they didn't even look like they wanted to be there. Um, and I think they need to make Trevor Etienne, the running back, more of a focus in that offense. Um, but I don't even think that's the only thing they need to change. I think this will be more of a trial and error type thing where Florida maybe tries some new things and some of those might fail. And so as a result, give me Vandy to cover this one in a game that I think is going to be very sloppy, very, very messy. And give me Vandy to cover 18 and a half. For Vandy Chase, they haven't played well all year. They haven't played a complete game. They've switched quarterbacks now. It sounds like Ken Steele is going to go again on Saturday. AJ Swan, of course, is banged up a little bit. I think he's back to close to full health. Um, but yeah, it's been bad. Defensively they can't tackle. I think they're one of the worst few teams in the league in terms of missed tackles. I think they've got almost 60 on the season, which is just way too high. So yeah, I think similar things continue. 18 and a half is just too much. I think Kentucky, Missouri, I might take this, on the opposite side of Vandy. But since it's Florida, I mean, it's Florida. They just got boat race last week, and now they're getting 18 and a half. I don't know about that. Give me Vandy to cover 18 and a half, but I think Florida still wins. Um, yeah, Chase, Vandy's got to get they got to get something going. I think they've got to get some sort of positivity down the stretch of the season for recruiting, for the fans' morale, for teams' morale, and something's got to give here. So yeah, maybe Vanderbilt covering will help change the tide and move things in the right direction a little bit. But yeah, I think they do cover. I think this is the week.
Watching the UNLV game, AJ Swan has a lot of fight. He's a competitive, tough kid. I like the way he plays. He got banged up in that game with his elbow. They put a pad on him, and he comes in there and he wills that team sometimes. And I also love Will Shepherd. I think Will Shepherd is a dog. He's great. I think he high points the ball really well. I think he's great in open field. He's I don't how tall is Will Shepherd? Is he 6'3",
About
6'4"?
6'3". Yep.
So I like what I saw out of him in that small viewing sample that I've gathered so far this season. Do you have you like the over or you like the under here of 52?
52. Give me the under. I think it'll be sloppy. I think both defenses kind of hatchet, bury the hatchet or whatever you call that, tighten the hatches a little bit. Um, but yeah, give me the under. Under 52 in this one. But yeah, Vandy covers somehow. I don't know how, but they will.
Well, we've gone through a very good slate of head to heads, and we even got two games where we were completely on the same side. And now it's time to really right the wrongs that we've had for Pick'em. As good as we have been, or as bad as we have been in Pick'ems, straight up. Lock of the week. We both have to get better here. So Billy, before we get out of here, what's your lock of the week?
Man, this is tough. I tried to put a lot of thought into this because last week, what an awful lock of the week with LSU there. Um, I'm just trying to decide between a few different teams here. Let's see here. Let me go. Man, this is tough. I want to make a smart decision, and because of that, give me. Hmm, give me Notre Dame. Give me Notre Dame block of the week, -6.5, and I might be getting screwed for that. Might be an awful decision. I just think Notre Dame's better than Louisville. I don't think Louisville's as physical as Duke and Ohio State. It might be close, might be cutting it close, but Notre Dame, lock of the week. Go Irish, baby.
Let me take you back to week 2 really quickly before I give you my lock of the week. You took Notre Dame against NC State. That was your first lock of the week win, and now you're coming back to them again. Well, my lock of the week for week 2 was a team that went on the road against Alabama and won. I'm talking about Hook'em Horns. I'm talking about Texas. So, Billy, week 2, deja vu, because I'm taking Texas -6.5 as my lock of the week in the Red River rivalry game against Oklahoma. I think this is how we do it. This is how we got to get back into the win column lock of the weeks. We got to rely on the teams that have got us here, and we're both taking a team, or we're both taking teams that have produced for us in our locks of the week. Um, so that's about it. Billy, lock of the week, Notre Dame -6.5, me, Texas -6.5. It's been a fun show. We have a great slate of college football this weekend. We are entering the day from here on out. There's 50 straight days of football, whether it's college or NFL. So grab your popcorn and don't move. Don't leave your couch for 50 days. But if you're going to sit on your couch, pull out your phone, go to Twitter, follow us on Twitter, where we will get all the inside of our pick'ems, of our rankings. Catch us there, but also catch us on YouTube because every week we are on YouTube. So like, comment, subscribe, do all the fun stuff, and we'll catch you guys next week. Thank you guys so much.